challenge. It's something that every single MMORPG player claims they want, and yet no one can actually define what that is. One player will say, well, raid content is what I consider to be a challenge in an MMORPG, while another player will say that it's the group-based content that they find challenging. Others will say, I hate doing any type of gated content that requires me to get flagged or keyed for a zone, and that to me is too challenging, while other people will claim that it's the death mechanic that is the challenge inherent in the system. But what if all of those concepts can be boiled down to one singular component that is the journey? That's what we're going to be discovering today, how an epic story can actually equate challenge and can define all of those components in one simple storyline. We're going to be using the Lord of the Rings as the case study, the entire journey of the Fellowship of the Ring, not just the book, but the journey of the Fellowship of the Ring to destroy the One Ring, and all of the components within there and how they reflect upon each of the individual things that people like to claim are the challenge in an MMORPG for them. Welcome to the latest MMORPG Analysis video. I'm Tim Anderson, aka Renfail, known as some to be the bearded dwarven princess, and I can't wait to dive into today's discussion with you. Before we do, though, shout out to all of our supporters here on YouTube as members of the Adventurers Guild, as well as those of you who are over on Patreon. Of course, those of you who are doing super thanks on videos like these and tuning in live every time I do a live stream and doing super chats and stickers. Because of you, I'm able to survive as a full-time content creator and full-time streamer on YouTube. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so that you can get more information like this delivered to you when I have new videos out, and more information at the end about how you too can become a supporter of this channel. When you start looking at what truly defines an epic journey in storytelling, you can look at something like the character of Thor. No one likes to hear about Thor going to the grocery store to get a gallon of milk. That's boring. That's what I call a milk run. It's a fetch quest. It's a mundane task that no one cares about doing because everyone has to do those tasks. What we want to see is Thor embarking on this epic journey with the Avengers to complete a task that is so heroic in scope, so epic in nature that he can't do it alone, God though he is. That is what is at the essence of the Lord of the Rings as a story. And this is where I like to analyze and define what is challenge in an MMORPG. Because if you look at the Lord of the Rings and the journey that the Fellowship takes from the time we are in the Shire all the way up to when the ring gets thrown in Mount Doom at the end, we have solo play, we have duo play, we have trio play, we have full group content, and we have raids. In and of themselves, each one of these individual components may or may not have aspects of it that are challenging to the individuals on those quests, but it is the scope of the journey, the scope of the undertaking that truly defines what challenge is. And that challenge is to destroy the One Ring. Now, there's a lot of aspects to that. For example, when Frodo is first starting out in his journey, he's in the Shire, it's very much a single player storyline because he's just talking to Gandalf and going back and forth with what's happening there. However, once Gandalf comes back and sets Frodo out upon his task, he is now on a duo mission because he's traveling with Sam, and they have this task of escaping the Shire. Now, this task is inherently fraught with risk because they don't want to be seen, they don't want to be caught, they have to be secretive. Along the way, they get into trouble and they meet a couple of other hobbits. And now we're dealing with small group content as the four hobbits, including Merry and Pippin, go on and travel through the countryside, working their way towards Buckland. And along the way, they've got black riders, they've got the midges in the marsh. What do they eat when they can't get hobbits? There are multiple challenges that are affecting this small group along the way. Now, once they finally get to where they're going, they embark on the next stage of their group quest, which is the Old Forest. They get into the Old Forest, they come up against Old Man Willow. Again, a challenge that would be too difficult for them to overcome on their own, but they find help in the character of Tom Bombadil. From there, they are off to the Barrow Downs, where once again, a challenge that is too great for the four of them together, but they find themselves rescued by Tom Bombadil, and then they eventually make their way to the village of Bree and the town and the inn, the Prancing Pony, where they meet Aragorn. Now we have a larger group, a full group party, if you will, as Aragorn then leads them across the countryside towards Rivendell. And again, this is a journey that is fraught with danger. We have the Nazgul chasing them, and even though they are a full group, they find themselves at Weathertop under assault. Frodo falls, is gravely injured, and has to be taken to Rivendell to be cured of his uh, disease and his injury. All of these are quests. Now, had Frodo and Sam been by themselves at Weathertop, they surely would have died. No doubt about it. The challenge of the Nazgul was something that could only be overcome by a group. But the challenge of sneaking out of the Shire was something that didn't need a group. It could be done by two people. Getting flash forwarding again to Rivendell, we now have individual solo quests once again as Frodo makes his way around and has various conversations with people. We also have Aragorn having conversations, reforging the sword, discussing plans with Gandalf and Elrond, and mapping out the journey from Rivendell to Minas Tirith. Once they embark upon the next stage of their journey, they are now in a what I like to consider a raid scenario because we have this full group. You could call it a full group, possibly raid scenario. It's probably more like a full group scenario if you really want to break it down. But the fellowship of 9 members working their way forward. Kind of maybe consider this like a 10-man raid in World of Warcraft, right? You've got your 9, 10 players together and you're working your way down and you try to go over the pass and you fail. You can't go south because it's too dangerous. The only road left open to you is that of Moria. And so you adventure into Moria with your multi group raid team, and the encounter is so difficult that you lose someone along the way, but you still ultimately complete the dungeon because everyone makes it out the other side, including Gandalf. Spoiler alert. He gets a res later on and comes back. So along the way, we've got solo play, duo play, small group content, and full group content along with multi-group content. Once we split up at the end of after they leave Lorien and they're working their way down the river, and we get split up at the end of the Fellowship of the Ring at the beginning of the Two Towers, we are now back to small group content. We have a duo over here with Frodo and Sam, and we have a trio with Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas off, and as well as Merry and Pippin doing their own thing. So duos and trios at this point. And while some of them are going to continue on to do duo and trio content, we also see more small group encounters happening along the way as Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas meet up with the Riders of Rohan, and then they go on to Helm's Deep. And Helm's Deep is where we see our first true raid battle happening, where we have multiple forces joining together to defend the keep and eventually drive out the orcs with the help of the Ents and, of course, Gandalf going out and getting Erkenbrand and others to come into the fray. And from there, we splinter off again into small group content as Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas go this way. Pippin goes off with Gandalf in this way. Merry goes off with Éowyn in this direction, with Theoden. And eventually, most of these people end up coming back to Minas Tirith, where they are completing multi-group content, the raids of the game, while at the same time Frodo and Sam are off on this mission with Smeagol, doing small group content in a place that is exceptionally dangerous, despite the fact that it's only 3-man content. All of this, in and of itself, is one great big story called The Lord of the Rings. And it is the destruction of the One Ring that is the ultimate objective of everyone on this. To consider that the great big, epic quest that everyone is involved on. But there are many, many, many steps along that journey, some of which are solo, some of which are duo, some of which are trio, some of which are small group, some of which are full group, some are multi-group, some are raids. Along the way, there's also lore-based quests that don't have any combat whatsoever. It's just conversations and gathering information. There's even some crafting quests in there, the reforging of the sword as an example. And when you take all of those ingredients and you mix them together into this big bowl of adventure, you get a truly epic story. That is where challenge comes from. The challenge is in the story itself, whether or not the story that's being told is an epic tale. Because if it's just about going to the grocery store and getting a gallon of milk, there's nothing epic about that. But if you need to come together with a bunch of other people to do a great big storyline and a great big quest that has world shaking outcomes, that is where challenge truly lies, ladies and gentlemen. I'd love to hear your thoughts below. Let's have a conversation. Before we go, don't forget if you too would like to support the channel and join the rest of our amazing supporters here on YouTube as members of the Adventurers Guild over at Patreon, you can join below. You can drop a super thanks. You can go over to the Patreon page and subscribe, or you can tune into a live stream and do super chats and stickers and keep this content coming forth from the YouTube channel and keep my lights on and the internet paid. Thanks, everyone. I look forward to seeing you in the next MMORPG analysis video. Enjoy. Happy gaming.